Hello everyone, my name's Luke. I'm from the Portishead Chamber of Commerce. For those who don't know, we're a local voluntary run networking group, and the aim of the Portishead Chamber of Commerce is to help introduce local businesses to each other and ultimately improve growth in the economy locally. So I've got Becky from Stonechat HR with us today to find out a little bit more about her business and what she does. So I guess, Becky, the obvious question is what is it that your company does?
Hi, so we look after HR needs, recruitment needs and change management needs. So basically, if we take what HR really is, so it could be anything from recruiting your first employee, managing all the contracts, the policies, procedures, all the basic stuff that you need to tick all the right employment law boxes. And then as you grow, it will be helping you manage performance, manage absence issues, lateness issues, cover holidays. The day-to-day troublesome employment issues that you get as you go along, that you're not quite sure what you should do, what you shouldn't do, what you can and can't say, through to then, if you look at what's going on sort of in the current climate, which we obviously can't ignore, COVID's out there still. I've been working with companies to manage their furlough issues, bringing people back to work, flexible furlough, and making some redundancies, but also then working on the flexible working and the remote management side of things. So it's quite a variety what goes on in HR, to be fair.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And I mean, I guess one of the things, I'd imagine COVID would have thrown a massive spanner in the works, because it's a massive grey area for HR, isn't it, in terms of what the legalities are with all of that changes. And so you're dealing with a lot of that, I assume, at the moment.
Yeah, so I think everybody had to learn a lot of stuff overnight, but furlough was not a term that was in the employment law vocabulary until COVID. There was some legislation that it was built out from in terms of layoffs related to redundancies. So the basis was there from, if you have a good ground in employment law to be able to pick it up. But the scheme changed so many times in the beginning, so it was really quite a steep learning curve. But once you've got over that, it's then working with businesses about engagement and change management, essentially, with the employees, because it wasn't a nice experience for anyone. Business owners saw their businesses fall off cliffs overnight, employees worried about jobs and what was going to happen, and luckily the government did step in with furlough schemes and the like for self-employed, etc. So it's been an interesting time, to be fair.
Yeah, because that all this stuff's out there, but where do you go? And I guess with HR, because it's so broad, it's kind of like, certainly for companies of my size, wouldn't have a clue how to start. So I guess because it's so broad, probably be good to know sort of on a day-to-day basis then, how would your week look like? And what would it take for each client, sorry?
Okay, no, just take my day to day. So I've dealt with a company who's wanting to hire an apprentice. So we've had some conversations about how do you access the funding, what colleges do we use, what courses are we looking at, how many hours does the person have to work, how much do I have to pay, how does the whole thing work, because there's lots of incentives and things out there right now, so it's how do we do that. I've taken a call, a different company that I'm working with is looking to recruit, not an apprentice, they're looking to ramp up. They've won a number of contracts. I'm dealing with some 2P issues for those, because when you win, they're a cleaning company, so when they have won cleaning contracts, they've usually taken it from a competitor, so we have to deal with transferring the employees over to the new company and maintaining the service. So I've dealt with some of those. I've dealt with some sickness queries this morning. I've got some calls later on this afternoon with a company that wants to talk about some new employment contracts and a new employee handbook to reflect how they're going to manage in terms of remote working, flexible working, and really change the tone and the ethos to their handbook, rather than you will and you won't do this, you can and you can't do that, to more of a flexible, fluid approach, which is what we've seen quite a bit of at the minute.
Right, yeah, that doesn't surprise me, to be honest, because you find a lot of these sort of HR contracts are so, what's the word?
Legalistic and unfriendly.
Yeah, completely, and almost belittling to most employees, in the sense that it uses terminology that you don't really understand necessarily, and it kind of makes them not worth the paper they're written on. So do you help with the contract side of it then?
Yeah, so we kind of offer a number of different things. So we can either work with you and take a template contract and bespoke it to your organisation. So use the sort of language that you would use, reflect, can't even speak today, reflect your ethos and your values into your contracts, your policies and procedures and things. You can pick and mix what you want in that respect. Or we also have starter toolkits where we give you all the templates tailored to your organisation that you need in terms of ticking the basic boxes. So you won't necessarily need, an all singing, all dancing handbook, but you will need a contract of employment that does sing and dance in that it covers off everything that you need.
Yes.
But you might only need a privacy statement, a disciplinary agreement, and maybe an absence policy to start with, rather than a fully fledged handbook that you must have seen them when people sort of dust them off every now and again and go, right, where do I start when I've got an absence issue? So
yes.
It's very much dependent on what the business needs.
Rather than having a sort of templated thing, you basically make it as if you were the heading up HR in that company. So thinking, what would I want if I was this particular company with this ethic? How do I want to get these points across in a way that matches our values and things
and that's really important, because in theory you can go and download anything you want from Google, but whether it's tailored to your company, whether it complies with employment law, whether it reflects how you want to treat them, your brand, your values, is a very, very different story.
Right. So I'd imagine that's going to be a core part of what you do then, isn't it? And not just organising the apprenticeships or the personnel and the contract. It's actually doing that fact-finding consultancy as to why they're recruiting, how they're going about it, what procedures you're going to have in place from a HR perspective to make sure that employee's happy. Is that something that you do?
Yeah. So it depends on the size of your company and where you're starting from. So if you're looking to take on your first employee, you probably only need, a basic toolkit, the contract, your offer letter, your policies and procedures, and your GDPR compliance stuff. If you're a bit bigger, you might need ongoing, I use the term hand-holding, but more of somebody there to sense check things. Can I do this? Can I do that? How do I deal with this issue? And that would be sort of more of a retained contract where you would, agree a number of hours that you would support them. And you're obviously flexible then in terms of when they call, how you deal with them, whether it's phone, email, face-to-face, or how you go about it.
Right, so it literally will be a case of analysing or forecasting how much time it's going to take to give them that help and working.
Yeah, and you can sort of do that based on, the sort of size they are, what type of operation they are. Retail and manufacturing tend to have more, we call them employee relations issues, so sickness, absence, turnover, recruitment, than, say your organisation, for example, would potentially have. So it's very different. There's no one size fits all, and I think that's quite key in terms of, how I operate, because you can go out to a number of different providers, but quite often you will be put into boxes. Do you want to buy my bronze, silver or gold? Well, I also do that, but I will tailor the requirements that sit in it.
Yes, yeah.
But it depends where you go. They might not, and if they do, then you have to you get charged then for bespoking packages, where I believe more on working on a sort of relationship basis, agreeing what you actually need, and having starting points for discussion, but actually ending up on what's right for the business.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense to me anyway. So, what sort of companies would you say you work with? Then we've spoken about all different sizes. Is there an industry that you find that you're particularly successful in, or is there something that you're aiming for in particular?
Not really. So my background is primarily sort of retail, manufacturing, supply chain, logistics type of organisations. I then did a number of charities, and I'd never worked with charities before. And now doing sort of the self-employed bit, I've got everything from sort of, web design companies, cleaning companies, through to, the retailers, dental practices. So it's all a mix, and I really enjoy the variety, to be fair. HR is pretty much HR wherever you go. The businesses, how they want to behave, the staffing issues and things they have are all different.
Yeah. I think there's a stigma around sort of industry and having this niche vertical that people focus on. And actually, with a lot of these industries, it's completely irrelevant. HR is exactly the same. Employment is exactly the same, almost universally across
same laws.
Same rules. The only difference is as the company gets bigger, they might need more and more of those complicated words you were talking about earlier on that contract, which straight over my head. But this is exactly why, I guess, if you're growing quickly and you're employing staff, having someone with that expertise there kind of gives you the peace of mind. You know that it's going to be written how you want it, and it's going to cover you for the things that you actually need it to. Because I've experienced the online download of contracts, shall we say.
Yeah, it's a bit like I've also experienced the I'll build you a free website, and that doesn't help you at all with what you need.
You pay for what you get, typically.
You do pay for what you get. And in my corporate days, and I worked for Accolade Wines in Avonmouth as their group HR director. I was at Ladbrokes as their head of HR. So I've held some pretty big jobs, and I've had to work with some difficult senior stakeholders in my time, but also some really good fun ones as well. But to me, the key thing I kind of took out of corporate life, other than obviously the experience I can bring to consulting now with such a range of roles and remits that I had, is the importance of building relationships. It, to me, when I take on a new client, even if they only need the basics, it will be about that longer term relationship. They will they come back to you based on the service that you gave them? And if they do need an ongoing relationship now, it's about making sure that you do everything that they want and they need in the way that their business wants to operate, and you work with them rather than, no, you can't do that, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that, which is quite a lot. You get that quite a lot from some HR people, because HR can be very black and white. The law says this, the law says that. It does, but there are ways of finding solutions to different things, with the best interest of the business and the employees at heart as well. So
of course.
For me, it is about relationships and understanding and how you want to work together.
I think there's a stigma there with the whole black and white sort of box ticking exercise of HR. I think there a lot of people feel like it's that way, and I feel like there's a huge issue there. So it's refreshing to hear you say that that's something that you're conscious of, certainly.
And it's not my approach to say no to everything. It'll be, let's have a look at what you want to do, how you want to go about it, what the options could be, what the risks are, what the impacts are, and then let's make a decision and build a plan.
Yeah, because it's not just about what is, it's about why. What's the motives behind it? Is this a good intention or not? Is this something that is, could be justified, that technically doesn't suit, could coincide with a law based on interpretation? This is funny.
And some of it is open to interpretation, and then, understanding what the risks are. But what is your end goal? Why do you want to get there? And then let's work back from that rather than, the other way sort of around it.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. Obviously you were talking about some of these other industries, and I noticed you're saying about Accolade Wines. That would explain why you know about supply chain and things like that. So how did you get into, were you always in HR in all of these companies, or is that something that you...
No, so as I was growing up, I always wanted to work in marketing, actually. I'm actually from Wales originally, and I did my degree at UE, so I came over the bridge, sort of not really gone back since. But I did my degree in business studies at UE, and I took quite a few marketing modules and really had my heart set on being a marketeer, but turns out I'm not very good at that.
I'm sure you are.
No, honestly, I'm really not. When you look at my exam results and my sort of assignment marks, they were always much lower, but I was quite determined that this is where I was going to be. I had this grand vision of working in event management, because I just quite liked the idea of it, but clearly it wasn't to be. So I did a year out for what was British Energy in Gloucester. It's now EDF, and as part of that I ended up then naturally falling into HR. I did a year in HR type roles with them. I then did my graduate scheme for BA Systems, so there was no going back after that point. I learned marketing wasn't for me, and maybe HR was.
Well, it sounds like it, to be honest with you. So how long have you been in Portishead then? I'm assuming your office, are you based in Portishead as well?
So I'm based here, live here. We came from Bristol, from the big city.
Lovely.
2013, so we've been here a while now. We sort of moved out of Bristol, probably got a little bit older and didn't need to go out quite so much and wanted to have family and stuff, so moved out to Portishead. And it is lovely out here, and it's a very different way of life when you come out from places like Bristol, and I think it takes a little bit of time to adjust to a different pace, different way of living. But I would never leave out of choice now. I have these grand ambitions. I live on the village quarter by the park. I have these grand ambitions of moving to the lake ground one day, but I needed quite a few more clients in my business to be able to do that.
That's a good point, actually. Do you work with local businesses then? I'm sure you obviously do, but how have you found the sort of, the whole point of this is to reach out to people locally, not just the members, but so how have you found introducing your services and getting out there locally to Portishead? Has that been a challenge? Has it been something that predominantly is your main zone of work, or how does it look?
So it's not my main zone of work. I would like it to be a bigger part of what I do, hence sort of joining the chamber. I'm in a local BNI network, dare I say that on this call. and in sort of a couple of other networks. And I think networking is the key to establishing the relationships, building, you know, familiarity in your local market. But I spent so long in corporate life. I didn't set up Stonechat HR until 2017, having come out of Accolade Wines. So I had the sort of jobs where I was never really at home. I was in different countries, or I was just, you know, changed to my desk in the office. So
Yeah.
I need to do a lot more work now that I've set up on my own in terms of local networking and building those relationships. Because when I initially set it up, I actually intended to do the SME market, but maybe I was lazy, or maybe it was convenient. I'm not quite sure what the true answer to that one is.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I fell into long-term contracts. So I
Yeah.
did a few of those back to back. And then the start of this year was my last contract actually with Yankee Candle locally. So then I
Yeah.
thought, you know, now's the chance. The market conditions had changed a bit in terms of contract work anyway. Then we had the delightful COVID arrive. So it
Yes.
was an opportunity to start building relationships with SMEs. So I've got some clients in Bristol, I've got some in North Somerset. I don't actually have any in Portishead yet, I've got one in Pill. So we'll see. But I think, you know, joining the chamber, networking locally is the way to go about it. People buy from people work with local people. And I think the local business thing, I think, is a great idea.
Yeah. I think it's something that we definitely need more of. I don't feel like there's been any sort of noise about, you know, ring fencing our local economy and our, you know, the money that's going around, and keeping it local, because, you know, there's all sorts of services out there where basically it's going into a black hole into America or somewhere else, where just because it's a slightly cheaper or convenient service online and things like that. So I'm all about, and I think the chamber is all about, trying to encourage, you know, more local business. That's the main thing, really.
Yeah, and I think COVID in some ways did us a favour in that
I,
respect, because it
I
made
agree.
people shop more locally, behave more locally, because we were kind of trapped here for a while, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And, you know, it became more convenient. But I hope people carry that local thinking and ways of behaving on, because it is so easy to go to the likes of Amazon, you know, to drive out to cribs and that type of thing, when you have got local alternatives on your doorsteps. And then you've got local businesses, you know, like your business, my business, you've got financial services, you've got everything going on around here. It's about us guys working together and collaborating and, you know, building that network, referring business to each other, so it does stay local and we can help each other.
Yeah, it boils down to awareness. And, you know, I didn't know who
Yeah,
you
no,
were
it
before
does.
this meeting, and before organising this meeting. And we've obviously had a chat before this. And to be honest with you, we haven't done any business, but I've learned so much from having one little conversation about apprenticeships and what I need to do to sort of get that organised. You've been fantastic. So I couldn't recommend you more for just a chat about HR, because I basically picked your brains with no real sort of
Yeah,
idea
that's
on
fine.
what, and came back with an email which pretty much summarized not only our whole phone call, but everything that I need to know to move forward and get our new recruits onto an apprenticeship. So I can't recommend you enough, really. So thank you very much for spending the time with me today, really. So
Yeah, you're welcome. But that, you know, in terms of doing that with companies, it isn't about charging for absolutely everything. It is about, you know, understanding what they want, what they need, how you can help them, and go away, have a think about it, come back with something else, or don't come back for quite a while. And it's just, you know, sort of, you now know I can help you with apprenticeships, for example. Following this conversation, you know, I can probably help with some other stuff. But,
yeah.
you know, it's planting those seeds and thinking, you know, when I do need her, she's around, I remember her, this is what she does, type of thing. So, you know, I'm happy to have conversations with people. There's no obligation to buy. It's, you know, pick my brains on what you want, what you need, and then, you know, come back when you're ready.
Yeah, great. Becky, thank you so much for the time. That's Becky from Stonechat Consulting, and I will put Becky's details on the post here today. So if anyone wants to ask her any questions, you can. Just a heads up, we're going to be doing this every week for any new members. So if you're interested in joining, or you want to find out more about the Chamber of Commerce, or more about what's going on in Portishead, as you can see, we're all sort of keeping our eye on it, and the Chamber is very much involved. So expect to see another interview with another member shortly. And thanks again, Becky. You've been brilliant.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
No problem.